looked up like, oh, stock photos of plus size people, and I was absolutely just aghast at what I found. It was like women in underwear measuring themselves or holding like scissors up to themselves, and I was like, what is happening? This is awful. I didn't realize what she was coming up against until I looked and I saw how bad it was. You couldn't Photoshop that into anything useful. And, Mari knows I sometimes take issue with when they say things like a rising tide like lifts all boats. I'm like, but you have to have a boat. What about the people on the shore? This assumes everyone has a boat, and so many times people say those things because it makes them feel really good. Like, oh, we're all doing better together. And I was like, but some people aren't, you want bootstraps, but they don't have boots. You want boats, but they don't have boats. And, there's just like, you have to understand and meet people where they're at. And sometimes that's just in a totally different space versus kind of just patting yourself on the back about like, oh, look, we all have access. Do we?
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 352 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with Katie and Mara and Brandon from No Margins Agency. No Margins Agency offers stock photography of underrepresented and marginalized people because everyone deserves to be the hero of their story. And my interview with them is coming up later in this episode, but first, let's hear a word about this episode's sponsor.
Have you been trying to find just the right photos to represent the main characters in your novels? Are you frustrated with the lack of diversity in the models that are available on most stock image sites? And are you tired of being confronted with a myriad of bad and sometimes harmful images of people who are supposed to represent these inspiring and realistic characters you have imagined? The path to publication is rough for people with more barriers than most, along with a lack of resources. And, as many people know, a good cover sells a book. But what is an author to do? Introducing No Margins Agency, a solution for people who've run into these barriers. We were born with the goal of helping people from diverse backgrounds actually see themselves on the covers of the books they love. No Margins Agency is a company dedicated to helping marginalized people reach their audience, tell their stories, and drive sales. Go to nomarginsagency.com to learn more.
That's right, this episode is sponsored by No Margins Agency, the guests on this episode. It's actually sponsored by the patrons of the Stark Reflections podcast, and I'm going to explain how my awesome patrons who support this podcast over at patreon.com/starkreflections are going to help anyone who's in need of services from No Margins Agency. I'll be talking a little bit about how I plan on reinvesting several months' worth of Patreon donations into No Margins Agency. So people who are struggling and having trouble finding the right models for their covers can leverage this amazing resource. And that'll come up after the interview. If you can't tell from my voice, I am still under the weather. I'm still on the antibiotics from the strep throat that I had. Now, according to my doctor, after 48 hours of being on the antibiotics, I was no longer contagious, so I felt okay about going out in public without a mask, not wanting to spread the bug to somebody else. And I just finished a really long week. Sunday on March 19th, I drove up to Sudbury, Ontario, where I did a talk about self-publishing at the Lively branch of the Greater Sudbury Public Library. And then on Tuesday night, the 19th, I had the opportunity to do a talk with Kyla Haming, who is the poet laureate for the Greater Sudbury Public Library and also currently lives in my hometown. And so we went to my old hometown library and did a talk about writing and poetry. And Kyla is absolutely amazing. The stuff she does with poetry is phenomenal. And I have booked her for a future episode because I think you guys are going to love what she is made of. She's done some really amazing creative stuff with poetry. Then this week, also, I was participating in a virtual conference, Story Garden Summit, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. It is a conference being put on by the folks from Plotter, Pro Writing Aid, Fictionary, and Draft2 Digital, and I was one of the participants in it. Thursday this week, the 21st, I was in 4 different sessions that day to do presentations, and then there's welcome sessions and stuff like that. And then later tonight on Friday, March 22nd, I'll be in the sort of the last session, sort of the hangout where you can go and talk with people, et cetera, et cetera. But in any case, I've been talking so much this week, and thank goodness for Fisherman's Friend and Ricola to keep my throat, lubricated while I was doing, these lengthy talks. So I'm going to shortcut the introductory matter. Thank you guys so much. I've received so many comments from listeners, wishing me well, hoping I feel better, etc. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your awesome comments. I am getting better. I am feeling better. Just still have that thing in my chest and my throat that I'm just trying to get rid of. But I'm so thrilled that, and I can't believe it, it was back in January when I first talked to these guys. I'm so thrilled about what No Margins Agency does and how they're helping authors, and I want to participate in helping authors. And again, I'll talk about that after you hear this awesome interview. So without further ado, here is my interview with Katie, Mari, and Brandon. Katie, Mari, Brandon, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Awesome to be here.
So excited, and this is fun. It's been a while since I've had multiple guests, so this is kind of fun and exciting, and we'll have to tag team some of the questions. But before we get into No Margins Agency and why this is such an important thing for indie authors, let's dig into your backgrounds in terms of you as creative people, because that will probably bring us to the path of how we got to it. So let's go. I'm gonna pick on Katie first. Let's pick on Katie first with your origin story as a creator.
Well, it makes sense since I'm the reason we all know each other. So I guess it's a good place to start. So I write science fiction, mostly like queer science fiction, and I got into doing that. I used to write like as a kid. I really enjoyed writing. I enjoyed reading, and then I got into college, and then the weight of the world and having to make money kind of took over for 10 years. And then I was like, at one point, was like, I know I could write a book. I read a very bad book by someone who is published traditionally, and I was like, I can write better than this. If he can get published, I can get published. It was a naive moment, but it did get me into writing again. So I wrote my first book and knew nothing about the industry. I just wrote it. And then I went to a conference in Fort Collins, and I met the only other young person who was there, which was Mari and another woman that we met. Everyone else was writing memoirs. And then there was the 3 of us writing science fiction and fantasy. We all kind of huddled together. We're like, what are we doing? We don't know.
What conference was that in Fort Collins?
What was it, Mari?
It's the I think it was just called Northwestern Writing Conference.
Okay.
I don't think it had a special name.
I can't
but
remember.
it was quite small. And we also met Angie Hodap there, which was really
yes.
And so you were the genre writers in the group of memoirists. Okay.
Yes, I learned what speculative fiction was because I wrote like a near future like cop sci-fi, and I didn't even know what that was. I was very, very naive about the whole thing, and Mari had been doing it for longer, and she kind of took me under her wing. And we've been in a writing group together weekly for since then, which has been, I don't know, 5 years, I'm just guessing. But
Yeah, around that, I think. Yeah.
yeah, she got me going to Superstars. And then Brandon has been my friend since college. So we've been besties for a long time. But yeah, so I've written, I wrote 2 books and I tried to get them published traditionally, and that did not go well.
Right.
And then I went to Superstars and I decided I was going to publish, self-publish. And so I just finished like yesterday, my 3rd book. Hey, I wrote the end at
Congratulations.
the end. Thank you. And I'll be publishing that this year. So that's my sort of origin story.
Awesome. So, just for listeners, we are recording this in January of 2024. So,
Yeah.
so when Katie says, that just this month and this year, for
January.
you people in the future, now you know what I'm talking about. Awesome. All right. So, Mari, we were already starting to pick on you, so we're gonna transition into your. I know part of the origin story. I know at least how you met Katie, but what else? Where did that writing bug? Where did that creativity? Where did that all come from for you?
I wanted to write, I think my whole life. My mom would type out my poems on my dad's typewriter, the little old-fashioned.
Your mom typed them for you?
Yeah,
Oh my God, that's lovely.
yeah,
My
she
mom
would
wouldn't
type
touch my
out.
writing with a 10-foot pole.
She of course is my biggest fan and thinks I'm a wonderful writer. She would post all my little poems on the cupboards and everything, and so I always enjoyed writing, and I started out with more poetry.
Okay, wow.
Uh,
Do
and
you
I
keep that up?
honestly in middle school, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Have you
Um,
kept up the poetry?
no, I switched to books. Yeah, I switched to books. In middle school, I thought I made it because I got published in an anthology with a poem, and I was so excited. But then I saw my poem was next to a poem about turkeys, and I'm like, oh, they just kind of accepted everyone. So that was my reality check of writing a little
Could
bit.
have been a brilliant poem about turkeys. We don't know.
It was pretty good. I think we were all like, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade.
Right.
So
Okay.
and and then I stopped writing for a little bit, and then I think around 2011 I finally started writing again. And I wrote my first 2 books, and they were with a plus size character, and that's kind of moves into the more of the origin story of No Margins. And I was a little frustrated with because I wanted to see a plus size person on the cover when I wrote it. So that kind of moved that. So I wrote something else. I kind of sidetracked that because the cover was really important to me. Um, so I wanted to wait. I was like, in the future, someone's gonna, make stock photos for more plus size people. And so I was relying on someone else to do that. Um, and then I wrote 3 other books, which are published now. And I hope to put one more book out this year. But honestly, I'm hoping to get back to my plus size urban fantasy because now we have some models for it.
Awesome, awesome. You know what I love about you guys is you can tell you're storytellers because you're layering in the foreshadowing of this is just brilliant. And so we got a glimmer that Brandon and Katie were buds in the college days. So Brandon, how about you? How does your superhero origin story factor into this equation?
A lot of it started just based on Katie and I talking, especially during the pandemic, because I was living by myself and I was feeling really, really isolated.
Right.
And there were just a lot of different things going on at that time and feeling kind of stranded. And then, like, my voice wasn't really getting heard. Just trying to explain my situations. Like, I grew up in a mixed household, interracial, and going to different schools and feeling, not really being understood. And then talking to Katie about how I was feeling and not really feeling seen. Even a lot of times within books, like I would read a lot of books a lot of the times. And I guess the closest I ever got to was like the half elf story, like they never belonged, like humans or elves.
Right.
But I wanted to see characters that were more representative of my own experiences. And so when I just started talking to Katie one day, we ended up talking about, well, maybe part of it is you don't see that on book covers. Like you don't see yourself on book covers. And that's when she was talking about her friend Mari, who I hadn't met at that time either, and how she was struggling to find plus size stock imagery. And we were like, okay, maybe that is something we should delve into. Let's try it.
Oh my God. So that is so cool. So new no margins agency. And this is what fascinates me. When we think about indie publishing, we think about breaking the barriers of traditional publishing, and we don't need to get rid of the gatekeepers of New York, and we can do the things, we can tell the stories we want to tell. We can write the stories that we feel in our hearts that can connect with readers who aren't going to get them from the filters in New York publishing. Not necessarily, you could, but and yet, there are barriers still, which we've obviously alluded to. But let's talk about that a little bit more. And so obviously you're having these discussions, no margins agency, where like when did that actually become a real thing? Like Mari's saying, someone's going to do this in the future. When did it become your responsibility?
So it kind of came about. I have another business that's completely different than this one, and we've done well. And I was just kind of sitting around. I think it was 2020, had a lot of free time. And I kept talking about like someday we're going to do something, and I was like, wait, why don't we just do it right now? I don't understand what we're waiting for, you know? I think landing on something that was tangible because a lot of times, I mean, Brandon and I were like talking every day and we would just talk about the things that were frustrating us and that were upsetting to us. And then I was like, well, what can we actually do within the spaces that we understand? And I had been, Mari had been talking about her book cover and I was like, I'll figure it out. And I like looked up like, oh, stock photos of plus size people. And I was absolutely just aghast at what I found. It was like, women in underwear measuring themselves or holding like scissors up to themselves. And I was like, what is happening? This is awful. I didn't realize what she was coming up against until I looked and I saw how bad it was. You couldn't Photoshop that into anything useful. And, Mari knows I sometimes take issue with when they say things like a rising tide like lifts all boats. I'm like, but you have to have a boat. What about the people on the shore?
Right.
This assumes everyone has a boat, and so many times people say those things because it makes them feel really good, like, oh, we're all doing better together. And I was like, but some people aren't, you want bootstraps, but they don't have boots. You want boats, but they don't have boats. And, there's just like, you have to understand and meet people where they're at. And sometimes that's just in a totally different space versus kind of just patting yourself on the back about like, oh, look, we all have access. Do we? Is the question. So it was sort of like, because we're taking it slowly and we were like, okay, all we have to do, if we do once a month, we do a photo shoot, we can slowly populate the website. We all have other jobs, so
Right.
this isn't something that we're trying to crash into, so it was sort of just like, well, let's just take the first steps. And the first steps was finding models, which is hard because you tell people, we're looking for models. And most people were looking for, like, I'm not a model. And I'm like, okay, that's not what we mean. I guess we're looking for collaborators, really, more than we're
Right.
looking for models. So that's kind of how it started. And we just are kind of, as we come up with things and think of things, we just keep adding it on and sort of transforming it as we go and taking our time.
Wow. So I want to get back to that. So looking through standard stock photos, looking for a heroine for an urban fantasy novel, and there's someone with the measuring tape. You want them in a costume. You want them to look like they're a badass or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
that they're in some sort of action pose, right? Where you can get
Yeah.
standard models. Okay, wow, wow. So let's talk about that process of models of so you've got obviously and there'll be a link to the website, which is nomarginsagency.com, where you can actually see the images that you can secure the rights to. So these are all people that you've worked with or collaborated with. How do you define that?
Yeah, the people we've collaborated with, so far, it's been either people we know or people that we have found on like Facebook modeling sites. Usually I have to kind of really search and like
Right,
reach out to somebody and be like, hey, would you be interested? So some
right.
are like professional or models who are like kind of starting up, and some are friends.
Oh, okay. So I have to ask if anyone's listening to this and they are um, diverse in any way, shape, or form, and may be interested in becoming a model, for you? Is there a way for them to reach out and say, I'm interested? And what would it take? Like, would I have to, for example, if you're looking for, old fat bald guys, that kind of thing, would that be a thing where I'd have to, because I noticed you have a lot of sort of like white backgrounds or green screenish so that people can purchase the image and then Photoshop manipulate them into a background or whatever. Are there certain requirements apart from, hey, we're looking for old bald guys? Like what's the?
Yeah. So not really. The thing is about it too is that not everyone has a visible marginalization. I
Right.
appear to be a very normal person or like an average person, but I am also a queer person. And so, we want to have everybody, and it's not restricted to looking marginalized. People
Okay.
also have invisible disabilities, and some non-binary and trans people are not visibly those people, but we are employing those people, so we pay hourly for their time. And
Right.
if someone comes to us and maybe their main character isn't visually marginalized, they're still purchasing from us and supporting our company if they're purchasing imagery of people who are maybe more mainstream.
Right.
So anyone can just like get in contact with us. We have our email address, which is hello@nomarginsagency.com. And right now we are using a photography studio in Denver. That's where the big white screen is coming from.
Okay.
And we schedule a time. We're doing like one a month, and we schedule out an hour for each person. And we tell
Okay.
people what to bring and what to wear, or we'll ask what they have. And then we bring all the props. We have the swords and the knives and the fake guns. And, we just have them come as they are. And, we let people wear what they want to wear because we don't have like a huge variety right now. So if you want to dress up as a pirate, come as a pirate.
We also feel like when we let them do that, they feel more confident when they do it too. Like if they can wear what they would like to see on a cover or how they imagine themselves, then they open up and they have a lot more fun with it.
Oh, I love that idea because then you're potentially bringing in someone who's going to have a look and a feel that is probably going to be there's going to be a writer out there or a cover designer who says that's exactly what I'm looking for. That speaks to me about this
Mhm.
character that in a fictional world. I love that they can also have that creative element of being a model.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
thing I ask is they don't bring a snake. That's the only thing I
Okay,
ask.
but she had a snake and it was cool and it would have looked
Nope.
cool, and I love
Mm-mm.
snakes.
Nope. Mm-mm. Ex-Nate.
See, for me, it'd be
And
spiders, but so obviously there's a little bit of a fear of snakes and
someone
Yes.
offered to bring a snake, and I was excited about it because I love snakes, but Brandon is not a fan. And yeah, and there's something too about letting people be free with who they are because you don't want to pressure anyone into doing anything.
right,
And so, we've had trans models, and they asked if they could go topless after having top surgery. And I was like, absolutely, yes. I would never ask you to do that because like that depends on your personal level of
right.
comfort. But they had just had surgery and they were very proud and very happy and to do that. And I felt just very privileged to be able to have that moment with them. And I've also had women come and they like want to wear lingerie, and I'm totally for that, but I would never make somebody do that if they're not
Right.
comfortable. So, people come and they're like, I want to wear this. I'm like, awesome, that's great. I'm so
Wow.
happy that you're comfortable doing this.
Well, and part of being comfortable too, because often as plus size people, you're told to make yourself smaller, wear things to, to show things, hide things. And I think also with being comfortable with, the clothes you bring that you feel good in this outfit, you fit in this outfit. And and someone once told me, because like I was like sitting on a sofa with them, and I was like, oh, sorry, I'm taking up so much space. So like take up as much space as you need. And honestly, like with this company, I feel like it's that message. Take as much space as you want. You're here, and you don't have to make yourself smaller to make someone happier. And again, like awesome cover designers have been trying, but there's just not enough. There's like this one plus size model I see in everything. And it always looks a little crazy because they cut off the head and put a different head, but it's a non plus size person's head, and so they have this weird tiny with their body. And it's just like, it'd be nice not to have to mutate these things together
Right.
anymore and represent everyone and even all ages too. It's like,
Yeah.
people other than 20-year-olds exist in this world too. And why
Yeah.
can't, they have a sword and a gun and they're not just in the stock photo, cooking recipes, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
or in
Or
a little
playing chess or
retirement.
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
play chess. Exactly. And it's like, and so we all ages, races, and marginalizations, and that's kind of what we're hoping to, they can take up space in this world.
I think it's so important. It's so important that representation, that you can read a story about someone who's like you, but that the cover model doesn't look anything like the way they're described. I think that's so important. The other thing that I think is really important when you think about the publishers, big publishers and indie authors rely a lot on stock imagery, but you're providing stock imagery that is unique. It's more unique that you're not going to see the same half dozen models on the cover of particular. It used to be the Fabio covers when I started in
Yeah.
book selling, right? It's like, well, there's Fabio again.
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, but there's other men in romance novels that don't have the hair. Well, obviously, that don't have the hair or the muscles or any of those things, but they can be a catch for a particular storyline or whatever. I find that so fascinating. I want to spend more time because I'm thinking like when I work with my cover designer, I remember having to try and find one of my characters that I wanted her on one of the books, and I remember my co-author and I spending a heck of a lot of time finding an actress that we thought looked like her, and then trying to find a model who looks something like that actress. And and it took us forever, but she was relatively middle of the road, kind of average looking, where there's a lot of models who might look like her. It could have been a different hairstyle. It could have been anything that would have been different about her. But then we actually had to change a few things. But my designer was good enough to use that. So I just think about the power of going to the site, finding the right person who matches what you need, and then getting your designer to, okay, I'm purchasing this image. Can you use this somehow? That's probably how some authors have used your services.
Yeah, and we also offer custom photo shoots. So if you are looking for somebody that's not already available and you
Really?
want something specific, we can help find the models and then we can take the photos and do custom shoots like that because we know that there are so many different types. I mean, there are as many types of people as there are people, and you can't always find exactly what you're looking for. So, we can help people do that by offering our services to take those photos. And we have, like I said, a lot of the props. And it's a very collaborative process, as well as, our next photo shoot we're going to be doing with therapy dogs. So, there's just like so many different
Right.
things that we know we can't fully cover. We'd also, would encourage people to use these photos for like not even just covers, but also for their ads and, for building like character profiles and things like that. There's just like so many different ways that this can go and people can use these photos.
Feels like, yeah, like and this can go well beyond the book world. Just think about I don't know, whatever, Pepsi Cola wanting wanting to have models who yeah, wow, I love that idea. So that's so how's the site broken down? Is it like different themes, different genres? How does that work?
Yeah, so we definitely try to break it down by theme. However, lots of things look like urban fantasy. So urban fantasy is our largest theme right now because
Right,
it's sort
okay.
of it's the base layer we have everyone dressed in. We're like, come dressed like the Matrix, is what we tell people. Because people,
Okay.
Photoshop you can add, it's harder to subtract. So we
Yeah.
always do it like a Matrix version. And then we have it, separated out by like contemporary. And then we actually have quite a few aerialists on the website because I used to teach and do pole dancing. And so I have a lot of friends that do aerialist stuff
Okay.
and have like production companies. So we have like people in these like lollipops and in like aerial rigs and things like that, which is really fun. And also, you look at a lot of like fantasy photos and the ladies are like flying. It's hard to like recreate that, but you can if you have aerial apparatus. So we have like
Wow.
an aerial section and things like that. So it's kind of broken down that way.
Wow. I love that. So what are this is a project you're working on. You talked about the puppies, the the service dogs. What are some of the other projects that you know are sort of coming up for your your design company?
Yeah. All those words work. Brandon, you have some friends. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I've got some friends that I had met. I do Muay Thai kickboxing, and so I'd met them through there. And they are in their 50s, so we wanted to have like some older characters because again, like Katie was saying before, not everyone is 20 years old. We don't need to put, 20-year-old heads on other bodies, things like that. So I reached out to them. And so we'll be working with them. They also are huge fans of Depeche Mode, so they have plenty of Black Matrixy looks. So that'll be a fun one to do.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. So what obviously so I suspect I know the answer to some one of the challenges that you guys have, like getting this company off the ground, and then obviously what are some of the challenges along the way that you've seen so far?
Well, and because I think Katie touched on this a little earlier, like people don't think they can model. Again, it's, we're looking for everyone, and you may not have the beauty standard, like, or the confidence in yourself, but that's the biggest problem is convincing people. Yes, you can do this. Yes, we need you, and all ages, all sizes,
Mm.
all colors of the rainbow. It's like we want you there, and that's why like during the shoot, like making sure you're comfortable enough so you feel confident because not everyone is has shot in front of a camera before, but the biggest problem is finding the people.
Really?
um,
Okay.
Mm.
And of course you're all located in the Denver area of Colorado? Or
No.
oh, okay. So what's the
No.
geography challenge then?
So I'm up north and Brandon's closer to Denver, but Mari's in Dodge City, Kansas. So
yeah.
Oh, what? Wow. Okay. So
yes.
getting to the photo shoots is a bit of a challenge then, right?
Yeah, I do more of the emailing, following up, that type of
Okay.
situation, but I'm excited
Mhm.
because we're doing a mini shoot at Superstars.
Oh
um
my God, are you?
yeah, we
Yeah,
have a couple
yeah.
people coming in. We
Oh, that
found
is so cool.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm so
we
excited.
found
Probably
Can I
should have
watch?
mentioned that as a product.
We probably should have mentioned that. Yeah. Yeah, we rented a studio very nearby actually, and we had two people who were available, so we're gonna do a photo shoot down there, which will be nice because we'll all be together because we haven't all been
So
together.
cool.
yeah, we
So
need to take a
Yeah.
photo together because we're like,
yeah,
wow.
never
Yeah.
mind. Yeah. Wow.
Yes, yeah. So we're gonna be there. So you should stop by and check us out while we're if you have time. It's on craft day. So we're gonna be
Cool. Yeah,
like during
when I'm not
lunchtime.
introducing people on stage, I maybe sneak away from.
I know. Sneak away, come and check us out. So
Wow.
yeah, we're gonna be doing a shoot down there. But yeah, so I tend to take the photos. Brandon's really good because he does the Muay Thai. He's good at like positioning people and making
Right.
them comfortable and like telling them to do stuff while I am behind the camera. So we all have like our little parts. And then another thing that we're doing that we've started is doing reviews. Because we cover a variety, like we tend to read diversely,
Right.
and so we're doing reviews of books that we've read that are by diverse authors, and we would like to get other like writers and marginalized people to contribute to that,
Mhm.
and do reviews of books because some of that's hard, like trying to find the books that to diversify your bookshelf and decolonize your bookshelf can be difficult. You can find like the
Mhm.
listicles and things like that, but I'm always looking for like good lists, and so we want to sort of contribute to that and allow people to find, especially self-published or small press authors, because while it's easier to look up like, oh, what are the books coming out by Black authors, you'll find some lists, but self-published Black authors, that's really hard.
Right. Yeah.
um, so we kind of want to build a list of people who are from a diverse background that are releasing books and get reviews of those books to get them out there because I struggle finding them. So I'm sure everyone else does too.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I because of the connection to superstars, I'm thinking, are you guys doing a panel discussing this? Is this coming up on any of the presentations, or the world needs to
No.
know about this?
Yeah, we probably should have submitted for a tribe talk, huh?
Didn't think about that at the
Well, I
time.
mean, I am going to be mentioning this because I think it's a great resource that the industry needs, and I love the fact that you guys are doing it. And there must have been costs, obviously. So, Katie, you already had the camera equipment, or how did that work? Because you talk about props and renting studios, and that I hear that and I get scared, like, that's going to cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's also not crazy expensive. It's not really as bad as you. I think that's part of doing like one a month. If we had
Right.
tried to cram like tons of people together, do it all in a month, I would have like lost my mind. Also, it's like hard to hold a camera for that long. I'm
Right.
tired after 2 hours and I want to lie down.
Yeah.
It's like we're really spreading it out, so it makes it much more affordable because we're only doing like one photo shoot a month and for like 2 hours. So the cost doesn't exceed a couple $100 for that. And we have like the monthly cost for the website and things like that. But it's all very manageable. And it's something that if I have the money to invest, I wanted to invest in something like this because it's always been my passion to really give a voice to people who are voiceless and to provide a way for people to express themselves in the way that they feel is best, not the way that I think is best for them, which is sometimes hard to do because you always think you know what's best. So it's really more about providing tools that people can use to make the right decisions for themselves. And so to me, it's a worthy investment. And because we are being very cognizant about that and spacing it out and not rushing it, it's not bad. It's not a massive barrier for us. I'm sure that will change. One thing we would really like to do, and we're going to apply for in February, is to get a booth at DragonCon and allow marginalized self-published authors to come and speak at the booth. They don't have to pay for the booth, but they can bring their books and they can do like a reading. And so people who couldn't afford to do that, couldn't afford to be a vendor, probably couldn't get a vendor. We may not get it either, but we're going to try.
Yeah.
And provide a booth for people to, get their books out there to a broader audience.
I think one of the other challenges that I was suspecting is that running a company like this while you're also doing other work,
Yeah.
do you still have
Yes.
time for writing? Is that taking a back seat for you guys?
Yeah. I can find any reason to not be doing what I should be doing. I painted a mural. Like,
There you go. That was instead of writing the next story, right?
yeah.
But Katie was also writing earlier today too. So
Yeah, he did
Good for
call me
you.
and I was
Okay.
writing. Yeah, sometimes it's like an excuse. I think as writers, we all know that we have our excuses to not write, but also I think it gives us sometimes writing can be very defeating,
Right.
when you don't feel like you can get to the end or you lose the will, when your mental health isn't quite there or the rest of your life isn't falling into place to give you that space, because we're not full-time writers, we each have jobs, that it gives us something that we can collectively work on because writing is such a vacuum, and together we're working towards something, and that can be something that keeps us going as well. I think for me, I don't know about you, Mari, but
Yeah, honestly, poor Katie has heard me every week for a long time now saying, "Well, I haven't written anything this week." And that hopefully, that's going to change more because it happened a lot around COVID times, and I published my series and I was writing every day and things were looking good, and then work just got kind of stressful. I'm,
Right.
I'm a teacher.
Oh
My
yeah, no
mission
kidding. That
had,
was a
yeah.
dramatic shift.
And I mean, I can, blame it on being tired from work too, but I do have downtime where I could use this writing. I'll admit that in front
When
of
you're not running
the
a
audience.
business, a separate
Yeah,
business from writing. Yeah.
it's like that, there's times it's like, yeah, I could be right. And and
Yeah.
so, but honestly, this type of thing has encouraged me and made me more excited to go back to my original urban fantasy because I just really, two books are written, and
Mhm.
I just felt so passionate about the cover. I stopped. Most people just put in like a placeholder, like I probably should have. That would have been the smarter business thing to do. But I think it's because I just related so much to the character that
Right.
I just wanted her to be seen. Just, so I've been thinking like, honestly, I can go back to that now because we can, I can find a model now.
Do you have you
Yeah.
found a model for your cover yet, or is that still a
Well,
process?
there was one that I told you I was like, honestly, I think she'd be perfect. So she's on our website now. I forgot the name that she was under.
Awesome. Okay, so
They
for
don't
an
have their
author,
actual names.
who's looking to leverage to license one of the images that you
Mhm.
guys have taken, what's the approximate cost? I mean, is there a range? How much would that cost them?
I have forgotten. Does anyone
I was
remember?
gonna hope someone else would say
Someone else
it.
needs to. I set the price. We set the price months ago, and now I can't remember. But it's very comparable to what was out there for like other stock photos, and we actually made them a bit
Okay.
cheaper for that reason. And then
Right.
we also have bundled like 10 packs, and you can get the whole
Gotcha. Okay.
album. My memory is a sieve on the best of days, but
We're
but there
all
is no way.
It's okay. What we'll do is
I think
after
it's
the
like
interview,
$5.
you guys will ping me, let me know, and I'll include that in the post
Okay.
interview notes so that
wow, we all
you
forgot
get
what they were.
it. That's fine. I understand that. But and then you talked about sorry, sharing with the models. Like how does that work then? Is it like a sort of a royalty that they get for the use of their likeness, or how does that work?
So we pay them. So in
Oh, up
exchange
front.
for yeah, we pay them up
Okay.
Mhm.
front. I believe everyone deserves to get paid for their work. So we
Spoken like an artist.
yeah, like you deserve to get paid. Very adamant about that. And then we will make some available for free for them to download and use if they want to like have them for their own work or
Right.
anything like that. But we just pay them up front so that
Okay.
it's
Wow.
clean and easy.
And then they
Yeah.
have a portfolio of professional modeling experience, which is
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing when you think about most of us grow up and go, well, I could never be a model, but no, you can. Yeah, you
Mhm.
can. You are the perfect model,
Yeah.
because everyone's the perfect model, right? Because there's no
Mhm.
set weirdness with lots of photoshopping and getting rid of
Mhm.
reality and stuff like that. Oh my God. So before we come to a close, any advice you would offer for authors who are, frustrated with some of the barriers that exist in both traditional and obviously in indie publishing? What are some of the things? Because you guys are obviously go-getters. Let's go. Let's make a change. Let's make a positive difference. What about the people who haven't realized that sort of power yet?
I would say finding community. I mean, that's what we've done, and it takes time, especially as an adult. I think we've all run into the like, how do you make friends as an adult, but also making friends and sort of like networking, but making friends who have the same struggles as you, so you can support each other because a lot of these systems of support are not made for us and don't deal with the realities. You get advice from people who are able to be full-time authors, and like that's lovely, but that's not everyone else's experience. And for people who are writing and they have disabilities, like that's a whole nother thing that like having to explain to people this extra layer of something is hard. So like finding that community and people who can support you is like absolutely what I would recommend. It's easier said than done, but Facebook is there. A lot of these communities are there. It just takes some looking and to um, not give your energies to people who say they understand but have shown that they don't, or who give the lip service but aren't showing up for you. Like those are people that are worth walking away from because you're giving them the valuable insight of your experience and they are not giving you anything in return, and that's free labor. And you got to protect yourself, so like don't feel bad protecting yourself, and like find your community, find your people. They're the ones who are going to understand you without you having to explain yourself, or without them saying, well, are you sure, is this really happening? Is it racist? Was it sexist? Was it like ableist? Was it fat phobic? Are you sure? People should believe you. And if they don't believe you, then like you shouldn't be wasting your time with them. They're not your friends and they're not your support network. So some of it is learning to cut off the people that are using you, and then also finding the people who can support you.
Yeah. And also, like, you're struggling finding who you would like to see uncover what you would like to uncover, like, email us, like, go to our website.
Please.
And because I can speak from my personal experience, but I don't know what you're looking for. And this experience is very universal, because even talking to the person with the service dogs, she was experiencing the same thing, because service dogs are diverse as well. And she was having trouble finding diverse service dogs. And she's like, well, I wish, I knew you guys were around last year. Because, part of that's telling us what you need. And so we can, search for and find it. And if you're in the Denver area, like, we want to take a photo of you.
Yeah. Or if you're not in the Denver area, let us
Yeah.
know what
True.
you're looking for. Katie and I have so many different friends who have huge networks. So we would be more than happy to reach out and see if we can find it. Like, that's one of the things I found out within even my martial arts community is, like, I work with doctors and engineers and all sorts of things you would never imagine. But then when you start talking to them, you start realizing that they have all these other side things too. And we'd be more than happy to find something just by networking.
Awesome. Okay, so please remind people where people can find you online, and how they can email you to contact you.
Yeah, we are at nomarginsagency.com. We have a Facebook page that is up, nothing on it, but it's there. But we're starting to release a newsletter. So if you go to nomarginsagency.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. We'll be releasing a monthly newsletter showcasing what we've just photographed and what we're going to be photographing up and coming. And we always have a place for suggestions, because we want to know what people want to see. So you can contribute to that. So follow us on our socials, but you can find us at nomarginsagency.com, and you can email us at hello@nomarginsagency.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys, not only for joining me this afternoon for this podcast, but thanks for doing this for the community.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
I don't reflect on this enough, but I am so impressed and so inspired by people who find something that's missing in a community, in a realm, in an area, in a field, and they see it as a gap. But instead of just bemoaning the fact, they do something about it. They take ownership, and they do what they can to fill those voids, to fill those gaps for themselves and for others. That inspires me beyond measure. It's a reminder to me, as I listen to this interview, of how these folks have dedicated themselves to supporting and lifting up others. And whenever I see that, I want to pitch in. I want to help support. So to that end, what I've decided to do is take a couple months of the income that's coming from the awesome patrons who support this podcast and donate that forward to help anyone who's listening to this podcast who may need support and help in getting a custom model that actually is representative of you or your characters in what you're writing. So if that's not you, and you have a friend who has struggled with trying to find, from the standard stock image site, trying to find a model who realistically looks like the characters in the book, whether it's their skin color, whether it's their age, whether it's their body type, whatever it is, please let them know. Because what I plan on doing is I'm taking 2 months out of the Patreon support for 2 full months of revenue. And I'm going to top it up with my own funds, just, put my money where my mouth is. And I'm posting a link to a WooFoo form, a form that I have, where you can, if you go to nomarginsagency.com and you see an image that you would like to purchase or a bunch of images that would really be beneficial and can help you out, I will work with Katie and the team to pay for them on your behalf. So I just ask, fill it out, let me know who you are, and there's a spot to say that these are the images, like the URL, etc., the image name, etc. And I'd love to do that for as many people as I can. And also, if you have a very specific requirement where you need a model of a certain type, fill that out and let me know. Again, I will see what it takes to work with the team and get a booking, to get a model in who can potentially be beneficial to you. And third, if you are interested in modeling for them, now you can go right to their website and let them know. But if you'd rather do it through me, I'm happy to introduce you. I'd love to, help out, because they pay models. And again, what I want to do is, the reason I want to be the intermediary is I want to be able to help fund that as well, because I really want to support No Margin Agency, my apologies. And I really want to support what it means, because they've got some amazing, you can go check it out, nomarginsagency.com. Check out what they have already. They have some phenomenal models. I was looking at, I'm going to purchase some, but I was looking at it, I got all excited, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to be able to purchase this for somebody else who can't afford it? I've been lucky. I'm very blessed. I've been very fortunate most of my life, and what I'd love to be able to do is my small bit, and of course, the bit that my awesome patrons who support this podcast, the awesome bit that my patrons offer in terms of supporting me, I want to be able to move that forward, and us together, we can help. We can help authors who could really use that support. It really resonated with me when Katie mentioned, and I use this as the opening clip in the podcast, when she mentioned, great that a rising tide floats all boats, but what if you don't have a boat? It's not gonna work the same for you. So what I'm really wanting to do, as they've inspired me to do, is see what I could do to help them, help you, perhaps, if this is something that you need. So please, if you need the support, reach out. Love to be able to do what I can to help. If you want to do it on behalf of someone that you know and love and want to support, let me know. There's room in the comments in the forum so we can kind of have a dialogue and sort of understand a little bit. It's not dialogue. You'll fill it out and I'll email you back. But or if you know somebody that could use that, please share it with them. So that is it for this episode, my reflections and the offer. So I'm putting this offer out towards the end of March 2024. I'll leave the form live until March, April, May, probably the end of May. I may extend it after that, but if the funds run out, I'll have to obviously close the form down. But because I don't want to set anyone's hopes up. So hopefully that gives listeners a couple months to get caught up if they're on backlists of episodes, etc. But again, I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons who support the podcast, because you guys made this possible, and you listeners, you also make this possible, because just by listening to the podcast, you're motivating me and you're inspiring me to want to keep doing these podcasts and these episodes, even when I'm ill and I have a fever and strep throat and it's difficult to talk. Even, it makes me want to overcome these things, because, I'm not just doing it for myself, but I'm doing it as part of the Stark Reflections community. So thank you so much for being a part of that community. So until next week, and until next episode, This is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you, dear listener, great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.